Hello, friends. Father Frank Pavone here, National Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Priests for Life TV. Well, we have a very special conversation that we'd like to let you join us for today. I'm joined, first of all, by our Executive Director, Janet Morana. Janet.
Thanks, Father.
Good to be with you in our new studio.
Oh, we're just loving this, having PFL TV and coming to our viewers whenever we can, whenever there's something to report. It's a great opportunity.
It is, it is. Now, joining us today is one of the members of our Board of Directors of Priests for Life, and a friend and colleague from San Antonio, Texas. His name is David Rosa, and we've been working with him for many years. And he has a very powerful testimony that he's going to share with us. And with him today, we welcome his daughter, Marisa. How are you today?
I'm doing very well,
Good
Father.
to see you again.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, let's get right into the story. David, you're a part of our Silent No More awareness campaign.
Yes, I am.
And tell us why that's the case.
The reason that's the case, Father, as you know, when I met you in January of 2010, I had experienced 2 abortions in my life back in 1989 and 1990 when I was on the East Coast working in my corporate career. And I had confessed the sins, but I was never told or advised or spiritually guided to be honest with my lovely bride, Alice, who I call Licha, and my children. And it wasn't until I met you and Janet on that cruise where you told me, this is the moment, David, where you're going to tell your story to the world. But you had asked me to follow the methods and procedures of going to Rachel's Vineyard retreat for healing. Both my lovely bride and I attended. And we had to drive up to Dallas because that was the closest one, even though we live in San Antonio. And what had happened was back in 1986, when my lovely bride and I first got married, some situations came up where things happened and I made some bad decisions. So in 1988, I met a young lady and began an adulterous affair. At that time, my corporate career was taking off, but a lot of things from my past were ever present in my life. And I began a sinful adulterous affair with this young woman. And because I wouldn't leave my lovely bride for her at that time, she became upset with me and then actually had a situation with another gentleman. She became pregnant. And I happened to be at a business meeting in Manhattan when she advised me that she was going to go for an abortion and that the baby's father wasn't going to show up. So me thinking, being the macho man that I was going to be the father or husband that the other man couldn't be with this baby. And I decided to help her abort the unwanted child. And at that moment, I felt that was the lowest I could go. But at the same time, I was liberated because there was no more fear in me that there was nothing I couldn't do that was of a heinous nature, evil, where I committed murder and killed a baby. Well, a year later, because I kept my relationship with this young girl, it was my child. And my emotions were just all over the chart. And I remember dragging her to an abortuary to kill my child. Because even though I was separated from my lovely bride, we were having problems. I never thought that I could be the father of an illegitimate child.
Right.
That whole macho, I wasn't going to be perfect and things of that sort. And just the history of my family, there were so many different situations similar to that back in Chicago. And after that point, I literally crashed and burned and checked myself into a rehab center in Princeton, New Jersey. And after 30 days, I went and had confession with a Catholic priest. It took 3 days for my confession because the poor priest just is like, there's nobody that could be this sinful. But it was everything that was coming out from my childhood, in addition to everything. And then think of that, from 1991 until I met you in 2010, I wasn't free.
Yes, and we see this so often, don't we?
And you know, David, I remember when you first told us this story, you said that when you took her for the abortion, you came home and you said to your wife that night, oh, what's for dinner, honey? It's like you stuffed it down, like, okay, that's done, that's over with. You pushed it aside. But then you kept abusing drugs and alcohol. You became a workaholic. I mean, these are symptoms that are so just like other men. who are suffering from an abortion, an unhealed abortion, you know, and you just kind of went on business as usual. This didn't happen, kind of thing. You know, what's for dinner, honey? You know, and I remember that, you know, to me that was so striking because it's just so textbook as to what happens to a man after an abortion. But then also, too, how you kept it secret from Alice and your children for a good number of years after. It took you a while, you know, until you got to that point where you said, okay, I went to confession, but there's got to be more. This isn't right. And that's when you kind of found Father Frank and I by going on a cruise that we were on with a Catholic radio cruise. And you might probably find this so funny. Your dad, at the last minute, books the cruise, doesn't even tell your mom. Books the cruise. He goes, oh, I got it now. I know how I'm going to tell her about the abortion. I'll get her out to sea. She can't call her sisters or mother, and they won't go against me. She'll be out there with me and Father Frank and Janet. Perfect scenario. I'll never forget that. He gets on the boat and tells Father and I, and we just shook our heads. I said, I've never heard someone to go to such lengths to begin a journey of healing. But that's what your dad did. It's like he knew he loved your mother deeply. He knew the Lord forgave him for those sins of the past. But somehow he had to bring it full circle and reconcile with his family too.
That's right.
He didn't want to keep it, like Dr. Nate says, like a pseudo secret.
Well, and that's right. It would be a pseudo secret, and because it's the secret that everybody knows, and it keeps doing damage in the family. But you know, and that was a very healing experience because, as people can tell, obviously the way you're talking about it openly, and you've given your testimony publicly. But then, of course, the other dimension is the surviving children. So hearing your dad, as he has shared publicly so many times, tell us what this experience is like for you.
Well, I remember when my parents decided to go on the cruise, like you said, Janet, it was just out of the blue, kind of spur of the moment.
Well, we heard it on Teresa Tomio's radio show that you guys were going on the cruise. And I came home and said, I'm going. Go ahead.
Right. And of being, a freshman in high school, I was just upset because I wasn't going.
I do remember that.
And we were told, you're going to stay at home with your grandparents all week and still go to school. And we were like, great. Thanks, Mom and Dad, going on a cruise again without us. But I think it was months later, I remember vividly, we were at a swim meet, all three of us swam, and my dad just came up to me while my little brother was swimming and said, we need to talk when we get home. And I was used to these family discussions. We'd sit around the table late at night, have food out, and have these long-winded discussions. So I thought it was just going to be like a life lesson, basically, with Dad. And I remember we had all the windows open. It was summer, and my brothers and I were sitting around the table, and my dad just told us kind of outright, I had an abortion, and kind of rewinding. When I was we started volunteering for the pro-life movement when I was in 6th grade, so this was, 4 years later after that, and I never really understood why. Every Sunday morning we'd go and pray in front of the abortion clinic in San Antonio, and we'd do rosaries, whatever, but I never understood why. Like, why was I doing this? Why were we so involved? And I think that was when I realized all of a sudden I was praying for a sibling that I had lost and didn't know it, which threw my world out of proportion, but at the same time it made me love my dad and my mom more, and I think it brought us closer together as a family in the end. Of course, it was shocking, and it just turned my world upside down, but at the same time, it made us so much stronger as a family, being that honest and understanding why we were passionate about the pro-life movement, and reinvigorated my own passion, my personal passion for the pro-life movement.
You know, there's so many moms, dads out there, you know, who've had abortions, they go through healing, and the next step that they struggle with, like if they want to be silent no more, we always tell them you have to tell your family, which includes your children. And I know a lot of moms, we hear from them that they, but my children are going to think less of me. They're going to, you know, what could you say, like when your dad first said his sinful past, you're like, oh, that's my dad that I had up here on a pedestal kind of thing. Oh, he's Mr. Cool, he's a great guy. And now he admitted all this terrible past he had. What was your reaction? Because I think people want to hear that from a sibling, you know?
It didn't make him fall off the pedestal at all. If anything, I think it raised him even higher, because it reminded me that he is human, and that even my perfect parents in my eyes made mistakes. And they had pasts, and it explained so much more of why he was so intentional, I think, with our family about having these conversations, because he never did as a child, and my mom definitely didn't. So those conversations I always thought were annoying and just, why are you teaching me this? I don't need to know this. It made me value them because, like I said, he never had them, and so many other families have never had those conversations. Yeah.
So it is, in the end, a blessing that he told you.
Yes.
He told your brothers.
Right.
And, because Dr. Ney often reflects with us as a psychiatrist. He says, very often the children know about it anyway, and they may be afraid to ask. Or, whether they know it or not, the past abortion does impact all the relationships in the family. And if something is off kilter, it's more healthy that everybody knows why.
Right.
Because then you can work together to
Well, they may not realize it's an abortion, but they know that this, like you're saying, Father, is something not quite right. And I remember David telling us, your brother, he called your brother David the Second, right? And he wasn't David Jr.
And that was Daniel that brought
Daniel,
that up. But there's
right.
2 points I wanted to make here before I forget. Number one, your book, Shockwaves, explains my older son, your older brother, and his travails through life. The minute I read it, I knew. And tears just they come out of me. But it explains it. You nailed it. It's perfect as to why he is so self-imploding, so self-loathing, that he was missing the portrait, the missing child in the portrait. And then the first thing, Father, you were the only priest that I ever met since '91 that said, no, you're going to tell this story. All the other priests, good-natured and good-loving and Catholic as they are, kept telling me, well, you've already confessed it, received God's absolution,
leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Yes.
And I knew in my heart that was wrong.
And that's one of the key points we want to bring out in this short program is, let's not be afraid of the truth. Let's not be afraid of speaking the truth, sharing the truth, because that's the path to healing, to be silent no more.
It's such a common phrase. Honesty is the best policy.
It
really
is.
goes with this too, because like I was saying before, she probably had no idea that her dad had a prior abortion, but there was something not syncing right with the family, and the kids can't put a finger on it. Like, what's not right going on here in our family, or even how we feel towards each other, or myself. I mean, so many times children who've survived, the ones who survived the abortion, like, oh, we have to have a sense of measuring up now because someone else wasn't allowed in the picture. But we better really be overachievers sometimes, or we got to kind of measure up for mom and dad's constant approval because of this feeling of, boy, I got chosen to be born, and this other child didn't. So it's a constant until it's openly talked about in the family, and the forgiveness happens and the healing. That brings it really full circle.
Definitely. And I think that a lot of children, when they don't know what happened, a lot of the times they'll blame themselves. And I know I did, like when my parents would argue when I was little about money, I thought it was my fault because I cost too much as a child. So I think, like what you said, when there's that unspoken abortion, a lot of the times the kids might blame themselves for anger, alcoholism that the parents are experiencing.
Right. To know the real cause is a foundation for health, a healthy family.
Well, if people want to read more about my book,
yes, I was just going to say,
they can go to shockwavesthebook.com. It's an easy way to order the book. And of course, David's complete story is in there, and your brother's complete story. And I guess I have to write another book now to get
Oh, well.
or you write your testimony for the Silent No More website.
Yes.
You can write your testimony. But we want people to know, too, that there's healing. And just go to abortionforgiveness.com.
That's right.
Put your zip code in, and you can see where's the nearest Rachel's Vineyard or other healing right in your community. Or sometimes you might have a relative the other part of the country, and they're hurting. Here's a way for you to investigate, find the healing, and kind of nudge them down that road to healing. Because, right, David? I mean, until you went on that Rachel's Vineyard retreat, there was still, even though you knew the Lord forgave you, you had to learn to forgive yourself.
Well, that, and my lovely bride said she always thought she knew
See?
and never wanted to voice because of whatever the stigma that's attached with it.
Yes.
And so these tears are not tears that you see of sadness anymore. It's redemption. To hear my children say, it's okay, Dad. you're not perfect, you weren't perfect, but thank you for being honest, because in my honesty, the Lord has given me this blessing. And of all the work and foundation you, Father Frank, and Janet did, all those years where we heard you on the radio, to yes, I'll take the credit for crashing the cruise and doing whatever, because to me it meant the world to talk to somebody who talked about that. You guys talk about it all the time.
Yes. The foundation was there, and you made the plan. You followed the Lord's inspiration. It went very well. I remember the talk with Alice, who's now home with the Lord.
There was the funny part,
but the
though,
funny
Father,
part about it was, well, he said it to me.
Well, he goes,
He
well,
says,
Father,
there's only one thing that can go wrong.
he goes, if you hear "man overboard,"
Bing, bing, bing.
it wasn't such a good time with Alice.
She was a little upset.
Well, praise God. We thank you for your courage, your humility, your honesty. Sharing this is going to help many other people, and that's our goal.
Yes.
In fact, we're working with you on a book
because
that you're writing.
You're the one who inspired it. You and Janet, you kept seeing all the material, and you're like, see, the mitigating circumstances, which for maybe follow-up conversations, it wasn't that when I met you, remember, you're like, boy, you were a naughty boy, Dave. It was all these other circumstances that now you see, and the lovely cards and everything, since we're so little, it substantiates, confirms, and affirms. Situations happen where I didn't have a priest like Father Frank or you or somebody my age to help guide me. Satan was just tearing me apart. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't be afraid of the pain. Go through the pain, because it's through the road to Calvary that we get to resurrection and Easter Sunday.
Well, thank you both for sharing this. And friends, abortionshockwaves.com is where you'll learn about the Shockwaves campaign. Shockwaves, the impact abortion has on the dads, the siblings, in fact, many other groups of people too. Abortionshockwaves.com. And then, as Janet says, shockwavesthebook.com. You'll be able to read more about it. And finally, abortionforgiveness.com, where you, or those you know, can find the healing that you see has taken place in the Rosa family. So thank you for joining us, friends. Father Frank Pavone here at the Priests for Life headquarters for Priests for Life TV. We will talk to you again soon.